If you're too ashamed to say what it costs, you're probably paying too much for it. That's what my Gran Betty told me. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that sentence changed how I spend money. Because most people don't have a budgeting problem, they have a silent spending problem. And today I want to introduce you to a concept that sounds silly at first, but genuinely works. Loud budgeting. Not loud like obnoxious, not loud like shaming people. Loud like honest. Loud like you're finally telling the truth about your money out loud, without feeling weird about it. And I'm going to walk you through how Gran Betty does it, why it works, and how you can start today, without turning into a spreadsheet robot. Also, if you're someone who gets stressed by money videos, I want this to feel like a cup of tea and a chat. Slow content, calm pace, but still useful. So settle in. Quick question before we start. Do you know exactly how much you spent last week? Not roughly, not, I didn't spend that much. I mean the real number. Most people don't. And that's not because they're bad with money. It's because money has become this emotional thing. It's guilt. It's pressure. It's embarrassment. It's the fear that you're doing life wrong. And for a lot of us, especially Gen Z and Millennials, money doesn't just feel tight. It feels personal, like the world is expensive on purpose. Rent is wild, food is wild. Even existing is basically a subscription now. So, when someone says just budget, it feels like being told to just relax. Like, okay, sure. But here's what Gran Betty taught me. Budgeting isn't supposed to feel like punishment. It's supposed to feel like direction. And the reason loud budgeting works is because it removes the two things that destroy most people's finances: silence and shame. Gran Betty always says, silence is expensive. And honestly, she's right. Most people treat their bank balance like a state secret. They don't talk about money. They don't look at their money. They don't want to ruin their mood. So they spend quietly. They hope it works out. And they call it treating themselves. Gran Betty does the opposite. She's not just saving money, she's building financial freedom by being loud about money. And no, loud budgeting is not being cheap. It isn't counting every penny until your brain melts. It's not living on beans and sadness. It's the opposite of stealth wealth. It's unapologetic transparency. And I want to say this clearly before we go any further. This is not about judging anyone. This isn't about shaming people who spend differently. This isn't about becoming the friend who ruins every plan. This is about removing shame. Because shame doesn't fix money. Shame just makes people hide. Gran Betty says, shame is not a money plan. Now Gran Betty has a one-liner for everything. She'll look at you dead in the eyes and say, if you can't say the price out loud, you don't need it. Or, your future is not funded by vibes. Or my personal favorite, you can't manifest your way out of a shopping basket. And I laugh every time, but then I also don't buy the thing. So, you know that feeling when you tap your card and there's that tiny internal wince? Like your soul just flinched. That's the feeling Gran Betty wants you to listen to. Because most people ignore it. They swipe, they leave, they don't want to think about it. And later they feel stressed but they can't even pinpoint why. Because they didn't just spend money, they spent peace. Gran Betty says, every purchase has a price tag and a peace tag. And that line is annoyingly accurate. Now, here's the part people don't expect. Gran Betty wasn't always confident with money. I remember sitting in her kitchen when I was younger. She had a pile of bills in front of her. And the whole room felt silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy. Back then, money wasn't something you talked about. Money was a whisper, a stress, a secret. She'd do that thing where she'd open letters, scan them, stack them, and then just stare. No music, no telly, just the sound of paper and worry. And I didn't understand it at the time. But I do now. Because there's a special kind of dread that comes from not knowing if you're okay. Not knowing if you've messed up. not knowing if you're one bad month away from panic. And for years, Gran Betty thought that feeling was just part of adulthood. Until one afternoon, she managed to clear a particularly stubborn credit card debt. And she didn't just sigh, she literally stood up and danced. Like, fully, in slippers, in the middle of the kitchen. And I remember laughing because it looked so dramatic. But she looked at me and said, "Debt is heavy, don't pretend the relief isn't real." And then she said something that I still think about all the time. Shame is not a money plan. That was her turning point. She realized the problem wasn't just the debt. It was the silence around it, the secrecy, the idea that if you admit you're struggling, you've failed. So she made a decision. She stopped whispering. And she started singing. And that's where her most iconic idea was born. She created what she calls her Money Moves soundtrack. Yes, a soundtrack. It sounds mad, I know, but it works. And the reason it works is because it makes money feel less like this scary grown-up monster and more like something you can actually engage with, something you can practice, something you can get better at. Gran Betty says, a budget is rehearsal for your real life, and that's the energy. So every category of her spending has a track. When we go to the supermarket, she hums what she calls the grocery groove. And I'm not exaggerating, she actually hums. Quietly, but still. And if I reach for a fancy branded box of biscuits that costs £3.50, she nudges me and says, "Don't let a shiny wrapper dance away with your retirement." Then she'll smile like she's just delivered a TED talk. And you know what? It works. Because suddenly it's not about biscuits, it's about my future. And the funny thing is, she's not saying, never buy biscuits. Gran Betty loves treats. She just wants treats to be intentional. She'll say, treats are allowed, regret is not. Then there's the Saving Serenade. This is her anthem for her early retirement goals. Every time she moves money into her high-yield savings account, she treats it like a standing ovation for her future self. She'll literally say, "Clap for her, Betty, clap for her." Like her future self is a celebrity. And there's something about that that's both hilarious and weirdly motivating, because it reminds you that saving money isn't deprivation. Saving money is giving a gift to someone you love, and that someone is you. Gran Betty says, saving is self-respect in cash form. Then there's the debt-free dance. And you haven't lived until you've seen her do it. Because it's not subtle. She does the full thing. Hands up. Little spin, no shame. And the reason I love it is because it reframes debt payoff from embarrassment into celebration. Gran Betty says, "You don't pay off debt quietly, you survived it loudly." Now, if you're watching this thinking, okay, but I am not about to start humming in Tesco, I hear you. You don't need the soundtrack part. The soundtrack is just Gran Betty's way of making it fun. The actual method underneath it is simple. And this is the part I want you to screenshot, save, or write down. Gran Betty's loud budgeting is 3 steps. Look. Label. Loud. Look at your spending. Label what's actually happening. Get loud with your choice. Look. Label. Loud. Gran Betty says, confusion costs money. And this is how you remove confusion. Because once you start doing this, money stops feeling like this scary, foggy thing you avoid. It becomes something you control. And the best part is, this isn't you versus your friends. It isn't you versus your lifestyle. It's you versus the version of you that keeps spending in silence and hoping it works out. Gran Betty says, your biggest enemy is the version of you that shops when she's bored. And that is painfully accurate. So let's make this practical. Step 1. Look. I want you to think of the last 30 days. And I want you to look at your spending. Not your intentions. Not what you meant to do. Your actual spending. Now, I know some people avoid this part because it feels like opening a scary email. But I want you to reframe it. You're not doing this to judge yourself. You're doing this to understand yourself. Gran Betty says, "You can't fix what you won't face." Now, when you look at your last 30 days, you're looking for quiet spending. Quiet spending is spending that feels small in the moment, but adds up into a problem. Quiet spending is the just this once spending. Quiet spending is the I deserve it spending. Quiet spending is the I'll deal with it later spending. It's the subscriptions. It's the delivery fees. It's the little treats. It's the I'll just grab something purchases. And they don't feel like anything until you add them up. So let's name some of the most common ones. 1. Subscriptions. Is there a subscription for £2.99 that you haven't used since 2022? Be honest. Gran Betty says, if you forgot you pay for it, cancel it. 2. Delivery fees. This one is evil. Because you think you're paying for food, but you're actually paying for convenience and vibes. Gran Betty says, delivery fees are the tax on being tired. 3. The little daily spends. Coffee, snacks, random bits, a little pick-me-up. And again, I'm not saying don't buy coffee. I'm saying buy coffee on purpose. Gran Betty says, buy the coffee, don't buy the habit. 4. Treat yourself spending. This one is emotional. Because for a lot of us, spending has become our reward system. Bad day. Buy something. Bored. Buy something. Stressed. Buy something. And Gran Betty is so blunt about this. She'll say, you don't need a new top, you need a nap. And I hate how often she's right. Now step 2. Label. This is where loud budgeting becomes a life upgrade, not a chore. Because most budgeting fails for one simple reason. Most people budget like this. Okay, I need to spend less. That's not a goal, that's a punishment. Gran Betty says, budgeting without a dream is just dieting. You need a why. So ask yourself, what do you actually want? Not what looks good on social media. Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? Is it a flat? Is it moving out? Is it travel? Is it paying off debt? Is it early retirement? Is it a car that doesn't make a suspicious noise every time you turn left? Or is it simply peace? Because peace is a financial goal too. Gran Betty says, peace is expensive, pay for it on purpose. And this is where it might get uncomfortable, but in a good way. Because you might realize you're spending in a way that doesn't match your dream. If you want to buy a flat but you're spending £80 a month on takeaway coffee, your soundtrack is out of tune. If you want to travel but you're spending hundreds a month on random online shopping, your soundtrack is out of tune. If you want to pay off debt but you keep doing small treats every day because life feels hard, your soundtrack is out of tune. And I want to say this gently. This isn't about guilt. This is about alignment. Gran Betty says, your money should match your mouth. If you say you want something, your spending should start sounding like it. Now step 3. Loud. Say your choice out loud. This is the part that changes everything. Because most people overspend because they feel awkward. They don't want to be the boring one. They don't want to be the one who says no. They don't want to be the one who admits they're saving. So they stay quiet, they make excuses, they pretend, and they spend. Gran Betty solved this with loud phrases. She turned budgeting into language. And language is powerful because it shapes your identity. If you say, I'm broke, you feel ashamed. If you say, I'm saving, you feel proud. Gran Betty says, don't say you're broke, say you're building. So when your friends ask you to go for an expensive brunch you can't afford, you don't have to lie. You don't have to suddenly become busy. You just say it, calm, confident, loud. Here are a few Gran Betty approved lines you can steal. My bank account isn't empty, but my fun bucket for this week is full. I can afford it, but I'm not funding it. That's not in my plan right now. My money already has a job. I'm in my savings era. I'm not broke, I'm building. My future self already spent that. I'm not saying no forever, I'm saying not this week. And my favorite one when someone tries to guilt you into spending, I love you, but I love my goals too. Now, I want to add something here, because this is where people get nervous. What if your friends don't get it? What if they make it weird? What if they tease you? Gran Betty has lines for that too. If someone says, "Oh my God, you're so stingy," you can say, "I'm not stingy, I'm strategic." If someone says, "It's not that deep," you can say, "It's not deep, it's just expensive." If someone says, "Come on, just do it," you can say, "My future self said no." And if someone keeps pushing, Gran Betty would tell you, anyone who pressures you to spend is not your friend, they're your bill. Now, I want to pause here because this is where loud budgeting becomes bigger than just you. This is especially huge for us Gen Z and Millennials. Because inflation is making everything feel like a struggle. Rent is wild, food is wild, wages feel stuck. And there's this constant pressure to look like you're doing well, to look like you're thriving, to look like you're keeping up. And that pressure is expensive. Gran Betty always reminds me, inflation is a thief, but silence is its getaway driver. Because when we stay quiet about money, we isolate ourselves, we fake rich, we overspend, we lifestyle creep ourselves into anxiety. We try to keep up with people who might also be struggling, and we all pretend we're fine while we're stressed out and secretly panicking. But when we get loud, something changes. We build community. We normalize saying, "That's not in my budget. I'm saving for something bigger. I'm not doing that this week, but I'm down for something cheaper." And suddenly, being financially responsible becomes cooler than being fake rich. Gran Betty says, fake rich is expensive, real rich is calm. Now, I want to give you a full example, a real money remix, because this is where the method becomes something you can actually use. Let's say your silent spending is takeaway. You're not ordering takeaway because you're greedy. You're ordering takeaway because you're tired, you're stressed, you don't want to cook, and you want comfort. So step 1. Look, you check your last 30 days and realize you've spent, let's say, £120 on takeaway. And suddenly you're like, okay, that's not a little treat. That's a bill. Step 2. Label. You label what's actually happening. You're not spending on food, you're spending on relief. Gran Betty says, you're not hungry, you're overwhelmed. And that's such an important label, because once you label it, you can solve it. Step 3. Loud. You pick a loud phrase for that moment. Something like, I'm not buying food, I'm buying tiredness. Or, my freezer meal is for my tired self. Or Gran Betty's version, don't order dinner, order discipline. Now, do you see how that changes everything? You're not shaming yourself, you're giving yourself an alternative. You're building a system, and systems beat willpower every time. Gran Betty says, willpower is weak, systems are strong. Now I want to share one of my favorite Gran Betty moments because it's funny but also such a good lesson. We were in a shop, and I picked up something I absolutely did not need. It was one of those random things that looks cute and feels like a little treat. And Gran Betty didn't even look at the item. She looked at me, and she said, "Are you buying that because you want it, or because you want to feel something?" I put it down immediately. Because why was she psychoanalyzing me in the candle aisle? But she was right. And that's the real value of loud budgeting. It forces you to tell the truth. And the truth is where the power is. Gran Betty says, money doesn't lie. People do. Now I want to make this video even more useful by giving you Gran Betty's top rules, the ones she repeats like gospel, and I want you to listen for the one that hits you the hardest, because that's probably the one you need. Rule 1. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Rule 2. Buy it once or buy it twice, meaning, if you buy cheap stuff that breaks, you'll just end up buying it again. Rule 3. Don't finance your ego. This one is personal, because so much spending is about how we want to be seen. Rule 4. Your money should match your mouth. Rule 5. Your future is not funded by vibes. Rule 6. Being broke in private is worse than being honest in public. Rule 7. If you don't check your money will check you. Rule 8. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean it's free. Rule 9. Stop buying problems with your own money. And Rule 10, the one that honestly should be on a t-shirt. Small savings are still savings. Don't bully your progress. Now, I want to be clear. Loud budgeting is not about announcing your salary to strangers. It's not about being rude. It's not about making money your whole personality. It's about removing shame. It's about building a life where you feel calm, where you feel safe, where you don't dread opening your banking app, where you don't feel like money controls you. Because money anxiety is exhausting. It's like carrying a backpack you can't take off. Gran Betty says, financial peace is the best luxury. And honestly, she's right. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, okay, but my situation is genuinely hard. I don't have spare money. I want to say something really important. Loud budgeting is not just for people who already have money. It's for people who want to stop bleeding money through stress and silence. It's for people who want to protect what they have. It's for people who want to build a plan, even if it's small. Gran Betty says, start where you are, not where you're ashamed. And I love that line. Because so many people quit because they can't do it perfectly. But perfection isn't the goal. Consistency is. Now, here's the part I want you to take away from this video. Budgeting isn't a punishment, it's a language. And loud budgeting is you learning how to speak that language confidently. So here's my challenge for you. Create your own money moves soundtrack. One phrase for groceries, one phrase for savings, one phrase for debt. Make it specific, make it funny, make it yours. Gran Betty has a sticky note on her card that literally says, "Are we proud of this?" And she reads it before she taps. Try it. And the next time you're about to spend money out of pressure, guilt, boredom or vibes, say your phrase out loud. Then choose your future. And if you want to make this a movement, comment your loud budgeting phrase below. Because I'm stealing the best ones, and I want to know what your anthem is. Also, if you enjoyed this and you want more of Gran Betty's money wisdom, go watch the rest of the series after this. Because in the next video I'm sharing her most savage rule of all. The one she uses to stop impulse buying in under 5 seconds. And it's honestly the most brutal thing she's ever said to me. Because financial freedom doesn't have to be quiet. It can be loud. It can be proud. And honestly, it sounds even better when you're the one writing the lyrics.